Title: The Edge of Darkness. I never thought I'd come face to face with death, let alone find it lurking in the shadows of my own decisions. My name is Ryan Cooper, a 28-year-old freelance photographer, always chasing the thrill of capturing the perfect shot. I've hung off the edges of crumbling rooftops, waded through abandoned subway tunnels, and even photographed protests from within the chaos, feeling adrenaline surge with every shutter click. But nothing I'd faced before could prepare me for what was waiting in the shadows that night. But nothing could prepare me for the moment when my life teetered on the edge, and everything I thought I knew unraveled. It all began one chilly evening in November. The streets were slick with rain, reflecting the dim glow of streetlights like fractured glass. I had just wrapped up a photo shoot downtown and decided to take the long way home, a route that snaked through an industrial part of the city. I always found beauty in decay, the contrast between light and shadow, life and desolation. As I drove, my phone buzzed a message from an unknown number. Want to know the truth? Follow the signs. I chuckled, thinking it was some spam or a prank. But then I saw it, a small, hastily painted arrow on a crumbling brick wall, pointing down an alley I'd never noticed before. Curiosity got the better of me. I parked my car and grabbed my camera, though an uneasy feeling prickled at the back of my neck, like invisible eyes watching from the darkness. The alley seemed to breathe with its own pulse, the shadows shifting just enough to make me question whether I was truly alone. I told myself it might be an interesting photo opportunity, but deep down, something whispered that I was walking into more than just an abandoned alley. I was crossing a threshold I couldn't come back from. The alley was narrow, littered with debris, and the faint scent of damp concrete and rust filled the air. The deeper I went, the more arrows I found, each one drawing me further into the labyrinth of shadows. Then I heard a tough, faint, rhythmic tapping, like someone drumming their fingers on metal. My pulse quickened, but I pressed on, my camera ready. The last arrow led me to a door slightly ajar, light seeping through the crack like a beacon. I pushed it open. Inside was an abandoned warehouse, the walls adorned with cryptic symbols and photographs pinned in chaotic patterns. The air was thick with the musty scent of decay, mixed with something metallic, like old blood. Faint whispers seemed to echo from nowhere and everywhere at once, their words just out of reach, sending chills down my spine. A cold draft snaked around my ankles, despite the stagnant air, as if invisible fingers brushed against my skin. The flickering overhead lights cast long, distorted shadows that seemed to shift even when I stood perfectly still, making the room feel alive with an unseen presence. Some of the photos were old, faded, showing people with faces scratched out. Others were recent and, disturbingly, one was of me, taken from an angle I didn't recognize. At the center of the room stood a man, his back to me, staring at a wall covered with Polaroids. He didn't flinch when I entered. "You came," he said without turning around. "Who are you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He finally faced me, revealing hollow eyes that seemed to pierce through me. His face was gaunt, pale, with dark veins faintly visible under his skin, as if life had been drained from him. "I'm here to show you the truth." Before I could react, everything went black. When I woke up, I was lying in a hospital bed, my body aching, tubes and wires connected to me. The beeping of monitors was the only sound, rhythmic and indifferent. A nurse noticed I was awake and called for the doctor. "You're lucky to be alive," the doctor said. "You were found unconscious in an alley, severely dehydrated and injured. Do you remember what happened?" Fragments of memories flashed through my mind, the arrows, the man, the warehouse. But it felt surreal, like a dream stitched together with threads of reality. I shook my head, unable to form coherent words. Weeks passed as I recovered, both physically and mentally. But the questions haunted me. Who was that man? Why did he lure me there? And what was the truth he wanted to show me? I returned to the alley once I was strong enough. The arrows were gone, the warehouse empty, its walls bare and unremarkable. It was as if none of it had ever happened. But something had changed within me. I began to see the world differently, noticing patterns and details I'd overlooked before. It was as if my near-death experience had unlocked a part of my mind, a heightened sense of awareness. The photographs I took afterward carried a depth and emotion I never thought possible. Yet, The real terror began when I developed those photos. As the images slowly emerged from the chemical bath, my breath hitched in my throat. At first glance, they seemed normal urban decay, empty streets, the gritty charm I often sought. But then I noticed them. Faint figures lurking in the periphery, shadows where there should have been none. My heart raced, cold sweat beading on my forehead as I leaned closer. Their eyes, hollow, dark voids, staring back at me through the glossy surface of the photographs, as if they could see beyond the lens, beyond me. My hands trembled, smudging one of the prints, but the figure remained untouched, unchanging. I felt as though I had captured not just images, but something else entirely, something that had followed me back from that warehouse. The room grew colder with each photo I processed, the air thick with an unseen presence. I wasn't just looking at the photos, they were looking back at me. Hidden within the shadows, faint and almost imperceptible, were figures. Dark silhouettes with hollow eyes, standing just out of focus. They weren't there when I took the pictures, or at least I hadn't seen them. The man from the warehouse appeared in several of them, lurking in the background of shots taken in completely different parts of the city. Each time he was closer, his hollow gaze fixed directly at the lens at me. I started receiving more messages. "You're not done yet," and "The truth sees you." Sleepless nights followed, haunted by whispers I couldn't trace and fleeting shadows at the edge of my vision. I would wake up, drenched in cold sweat, convinced someone was standing at the foot of my bed, only to find nothing but darkness staring back. The whispers grew louder in the stillness of night, overlapping voices murmuring words I couldn't understand, like echoes from another reality. Objects in my apartment shifted subtly, a chair slightly out of place. My camera moved from where I left it. Photos scattered on the floor, though I knew I hadn't touched them. Sometimes I caught glimpses of my own reflection, staring back with an expression I knew I hadn't made. Eyes darker, almost hollow. It felt like whatever I'd encountered that night hadn't stayed behind it, had followed me home. My reflection in mirrors would sometimes linger a moment too long, blinking out of sync with me. I never found the man again, but his words stayed with me. "I'm here to show you the truth." Maybe the truth wasn't about him. Maybe it was about me, about facing the darkness within and realizing that sometimes the shadows don't follow you. They wait for you to come back.